Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if it's your very first time here, welcome on in. I am back, of course, with another monthly plan with me. I can't believe we are officially halfway through 2024. I feel like this year just started, and honestly, I'm really surprised that I have yet to face journaling burnout, because normally, at least when it hits kind of like midway or like the summer months of a year, I start to lose interest and inspiration with bullet journaling, but that hasn't happened yet. So I am on a roll, I'm feeling good, and this theme is I'm so proud of it. I really love how it turned out. It is a little bit more on the minimalist side, and please take that with a grain of salt, because I don't mean minimalist in that there isn't a lot going on, because there is. There is a lot going on, but to be honest, I have been holding on to a specific washi tape since the beginning of the year, just waiting for the perfect opportunity to use it. And I knew that whenever I was going to end up using this washi tape, it was going to be the star of the show. And it is the star of this setup. So that being said, there really isn't a lot of extra decor. Like, there aren't really any doodles or stickers. I think I only used like 1 or 2 stickers throughout this entire setup. I ended up taking a trip to Michael's because I knew that I wanted some kind of red ribbon element. I knew I wanted flowers. I wanted to find those like stick-on gem things. And then I also wanted red cardstock. For this setup, I basically just wanted the attention to be solely on the larger elements instead of the smaller details, which tends to happen with my setups most of the time. Plus, the color palette for this theme is extremely bold, like with the red and the black, so I didn't want there to be too much going on with the smaller details. Again, this washi tape, as you can see, is just, it's so beautiful. I think my only gripe with this washi tape is that it is shiny. There is some kind of reflectiveness to it. It isn't matte, so that's not really my favorite thing, but I can look past that because the design of this is just stunning. At the time of me recording this voiceover, unfortunately, this washi tape is sold out on the washi tape shop, but I will double check, and if it is back in stock by some miracle, I will make sure to link it in the description box. Alrighty, so as I mentioned earlier, this setup was originally inspired by the idea of a masquerade ball, but to be quite honest, the more I was working on this setup, the more that inspiration kind of got pulled in a bunch of different directions. I was listening to the audiobook for Phantom of the Opera while I was working on this setup, and I had recently finished a book called Trick by Natalia Joster, which is the first book in the Foolish Kingdom series. I will insert a photo of the cover. Basically, I've just been in this very red and black Gothic mask vibe for the past few months, and this setup is essentially just an homage to those vibes. I know that June is kind of like the start of the summertime, and this setup isn't really screaming summer, but I am very much a mood person. Regardless of the season, I am going to create whatever I'm in the mood to create, and it just so happened that I am in a very Gothic Masquerade mood for June. So with all of that being said, I do end up using quite a few Phantom of the Opera elements throughout this setup. I do have a copy of the Phantom of the Opera book from Barnes & Noble, but it's like that generic cover edition. If you know what I'm talking about. So, and it's been sitting on my shelf for literally years, and I've never read it. I think I would much prefer to get like a nice copy of Phantom of the Opera. So I just tore a few pages from that book and used them for this setup. I also didn't realize that the book had like illustrations in it. So I found the iconic chandelier scene cut it out and then pasted it in as a part of one of the initial pages for the setup. Okay, so there is at least one monthly setup per yearly bullet journal that causes extreme warping for the journal itself, and this monthly setup is definitely no exception. These pages themselves are incredibly thick because of all of the elements that I used for this setup, between the ribbon and these like little gems and, well, let's just say something ends up happening to the cover page, which you will see very shortly here, and all of that combined to create a very thick monthly setup. Which, I don't know, I personally don't mind warping. I think it just shows how much love was put into the journal itself. It just, I guess, makes it a little bit harder to store the journals on themselves because they take up so much space individually. But honestly, this spread was so much fun to do, and I love how it turned out that it doesn't really matter. It can warp the journal as much as it wants. For this page, I thought it would look really cool to have like some silver ribbon details using the Uniball Signo pen that I have, but I kind of hated it. So I spent like the next 10 minutes just trying to figure out ways to cover it up because they're in like such awkward spots on the page, which I was kind of kicking myself for. But I figured this was the perfect opportunity to use the paper flowers that I got from Michaels. However, the only issue with these flowers is the center of them was incredibly thick, which made it nearly impossible to adhere these flowers to the page without them sticking out incredibly far. So I essentially ripped out the center of each of the flowers just to make them flat and flexible enough to paste into these pages, and I think it worked out pretty well. The remaining petals from the ripped out portions I just used as individual details throughout the setup, and I am really happy with how it turned out. Alright, so it is now the next day, and as you can clearly tell, this page looks a little bit different than it originally did. To be honest, I slept on this and I did not like it. There was just something about it. I felt like I could have done so much more. So I did a little bit something different that I've actually never done before. I cut a hole. I cut a hole through this paper. The reason why I didn't film it is because it honestly wasn't a pretty sight. I couldn't find my X-Acto knife, and I had to cut through several layers of different kinds of media. So there was the paper itself, the like red cardstock, the ribbon, the washi tape, all of it I had to cut through with these scissors, and it just wasn't really a fun thing to do. So I figured it wouldn't be a fun thing to watch. So this is basically what it looks like now. I cut in oval shape, and then obviously, as you can clearly see on this side, which this will be rectified with more ribbon once I actually get to it. But I wanted to clean up the edges, so I used the ribbon to kind of create this frame. And I felt like this was kind of the best option to hide the edges, just so it kind of blends into the ribbon that's already existing. And I didn't really want to use like another kind of paper. I don't know, I felt like this was the easiest way to hide everything. And then I had this photo that I wanted to use, and this was, that's what I pasted into the back page. So this page will probably be like the monthly favorites, because I did something similar to this in January when I had like a photo in the center and then all this like real estate space surrounding it. So this will probably be the favorites page, because it just makes the most sense for this. I don't know what I'm going to be doing here because this is kind of like a very interesting space to work with, but I am going to use the ribbon once again to just clean up this edging because it doesn't look good. Obviously, because I wasn't using my X-Acto knife. That's essentially why this page looks incredibly different than how it did the last time you saw it. Alrighty, moving on to the next spread, I of course am starting off by covering the hideous edging of this circle that I cut through the middle of this page with the same red ribbon that I used on the cover page. I honestly feel like this looks really cool. I'm glad I didn't decide to use another kind of paper, even though the ribbon was being a little bit difficult and not sticking to the glue as well as I would have liked. I kind of had to keep going back and pressing it down just to force it to stay, but I feel like it looks really, really cool. I made sure to constantly kind of twist the ribbon as well, just to make it look a little bit more visually interesting. I still, at this point, did not know what I was going to do on that page, so I left it blank for now and decided to work on the favorites page instead. This was another page that kind of gave me a little bit of a headache. Unfortunately, I, again, had a plan for how I wanted it to look, and I didn't like it very much. So I tore everything out, but that caused it to, well, look like that. So I needed to find some way to cover all that up because, of course, this photo in the center is a crucial part of the window that I created for the cover page, so I didn't want to get rid of it and I didn't want to tear out this page. So I essentially used the extra book pages that I tore out from the Phantom of the Opera book just to cover it up as neatly and as nice as possible. And that was pretty much it for this spread. I just ended up using the alphabet washi tape to write out the title for this page, but I didn't leave enough room for the E and the S, so I had to use my tweezers and my fingers to move all of the letters over. And at this point, I was low-key just kind of done with this setup. I had spent so much time on the cover page, and this page was not working out in my favor either, so I was struggling a little bit with this setup, I'm not gonna lie. Even though I loved the theme, the execution is definitely like a trust the process kind of moment. But it's okay, we moved everything, we fixed it, and yeah, that is pretty much it for this favorites page. Okay, so with the favorites page done, I quickly came to the conclusion that this other page will essentially have no purpose other than just to be a nice looking page. I just really couldn't think of anything that I could use this page for that would make sense with there being a gigantic hole in the middle of it. So I essentially just turned this page into a gallery wall of sorts. I have these frames that I got from 𝒅𝒊𝒔𝒄𝒍𝒂𝒊𝒔 a while back, and I had printed out photos necessary for this setup. I then just pasted them to the back of the frame as you would for, I guess, a normal picture frame, and then just added them to the surrounding areas of the page, and that is pretty much it. Again, not really functional, doesn't really foster any sort of productivity, but it looks nice. And the last thing I ended up doing was just adding in some masquerade-esque quotes in between the frames just to fill in the empty space a little bit more, and that is pretty much it for this page. Alrighty, with those pages done, we are now moving on to the next spread for this monthly setup. I knew going into this that I wanted to cover an entire page with this washi tape. I just wasn't sure when exactly it was going to happen or what tracker it was going to be with. But I decided it would be best to use it for the habit tracker because on most occasions the habit tracker is the simplest of the spreads that I do every month. So because of that, I felt like it would be the best opportunity to use this washi tape literally everywhere. I do wish this washi tape was just a tad bit thicker because I ended up having the smallest bit left on the page, so I had to use another roll of the washi tape, which is fine. I honestly am not sure the next time I'm going to get the chance to use this washi tape, so I thought this would be the best time to go all out while I can. I suppose while we watch my past self put the spread together, because honestly there really isn't much to say about a habit tracker. It's just calendars, habits, and that's pretty much it. I guess I can give you guys an update on what I've been doing over the past month. I had 2 craft markets that I attended for the very first time this month, which I don't think I'm ever going to do again. Honestly, it was exhausting and it took up so much time. I am so glad I finally did them, and I definitely will be doing craft markets in the future. And because I did 2 in a month, it put a lot of things that were on my to-do list on the back burner. I feel like I'm so behind just on YouTube and social media and making new products for my shop. So even though I really enjoyed doing the markets, I definitely won't be doubling down and doing 2 in a single month. But overall, I had so much fun. I enjoyed one market more than the other. If you are interested in learning more about how the markets went for me, I did end up posting a lot of market-related content over on my Patreon, including a podcast and a small business vlog. So yeah, if you're interested in learning about how it went and kind of seeing the behind the scenes of me preparing and getting ready for the markets themselves and my overall final thoughts on both of them, the link to my Patreon is always in the description. Overall, May was just pretty chaotic for me. I only ended up reading 2 books as well, which is pretty low considering my average reading count for the month is about 5 books, but that's okay. I am so close to hitting my yearly goal of 35 books. I think I've read 33 so far, and we're halfway through 2024, so definitely on the path to smashing that goal. Other than that, my husband and I took a little mini vacation to visit some family during the Memorial Day holiday here in the States, so that was really nice. And that pretty much wraps up my May. Just markets, Memorial Day, and not very much reading. Now that I have nothing really major planned for the foreseeable future, I can focus on a bunch of other things like diversifying the product range in my shop and just adding new products in general, which I feel like I haven't done since the beginning of the year pretty much. And on top of that, I have had something in the works for basically a year at this point, and I am now just starting to finalize all of the details. I am officially opening up journal commissions in July for 2025. I'm so excited when I tell you that this has been in the works for such a long time and it is finally coming to fruition. I am so incredibly excited and so happy that I'm going to finally be able to offer this, especially to those who have requested customized journals from me. It is not an easy task to put this together. There is a lot that goes into it. And a lot I have to consider, especially when it comes to time and price and, you know, all of the logistical stuff. I'm not going to give too many details in this video. More than likely it will be a dedicated YouTube video. However, of course, I will be early accessing everything on Patreon, so if you want, you know, to know the lowdown on journal commissions a little bit earlier than everyone else, it's all just going to be on there. All right, with the little life update out of the way, I am now working on the mood tracker, which, again, I feel like I say this in every single video. I am killing it with the mood trackers this year. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm just giving myself a pat on the back. Honestly, feel like I've really stepped out of the box when it comes to my mood trackers for these monthly setups, and this is definitely no exception. I did mention earlier that the Masquerade theme was going to come in full force for a certain page, and this is it. I used a reference image from Pinterest to kind of just get like the basic shapes and idea for how I wanted this mask to look, and then I just spent the next 20 minutes just filling in certain parts of it in white just to give it a little bit more definition. I thought I was going to use the gold and the silver Uniball pens as the fill-in colors for this mood tracker, but I didn't really like how it looked, so I do cover it up at some point through this time lapse. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to use to fill in the mood tracker, to be quite honest. But you know, that's future Savannah's problem. After numbering everything and then erasing the pencil sketch for the most part, I still see some lagging pencil sketches now that I'm watching this footage over again. I'm just going in with the exact same alphabet washi tape that I used for the previous titles, and then wrote out tracker with the same white Jelly Roll pen that I used to fill in the mask. However, I was originally using the size 8 to fill it in, but that was taking a little bit too long, so I did end up switching to size 10 just to finish filling everything in. To fill up the empty space at the top of the page, I went back in with another strip of red ribbon. I was originally seeing if I would be able to add the ribbon to like the mask itself to make it look like it was hanging off of it, but I didn't really leave enough room on the side of the ribbon for that to make sense, so I just added it to the top to give it, again, that same kind of whimsical flair. I don't really know. I just wanted something to fill up the top of the page, and I didn't really want to use book pages from the Phantom of the Opera, so I went back in with the ribbon to add a little bit more pop of color to the page. And then I had a bunch of these little stick-on gems left over, and I feel like more often than not you'll see masquerade masks have some kind of jewel embellishment, so I just added a bunch of different sizes to various parts of the mask, and I feel like it just gave it that little boost of detail that it definitely needed. And oh my god, I love how this turned out. It's honestly pages like these that just make me so glad that I chose a black page bullet journal for this year, because I feel like this page wouldn't look the same if it was on white paper. I know that we still have 6 months to go in 2024, but honestly, I don't know if I see myself going back to a white page bullet journal for next year. I feel like I've just challenged myself way more, and honestly, I feel like these pages have low-key kind of contributed to my lack of burnout because of how out of the box I have to be with the spreads that I create, and how I have to work around the fact that I am using black pages instead of the usual white. So I don't know. I'm just saying it's going to be very difficult for me to choose what journal I'm going to use next year. I've even considered maybe using like a craft paper bullet journal, because I do have one from Archer and Olive that's been sitting on my shelves for years, and I originally was going to use it as like a wedding journal, but I didn't end up using it for that at all. In fact, I didn't end up using it at all. So I don't know, maybe I'll do craft paper. I haven't really thought about it yet, but it's, again, this is basically just a long-winded way of saying that I love spreads like this because I just feel like it makes me really appreciate the fact that I challenged myself a little bit more with the paper type for this year. Alrighty, with the habit and mood trackers all done, it is time to move on to the final spread for this monthly setup, which was kind of like a last minute addition, to be honest. I was kind of okay with not adding any more spreads, but it is the middle of 2024, which means we've made it halfway through the year, yada yada yada. So I thought it would make sense to kind of do like a mid-year wrap-up spread. Basically just filled with maybe my favorite photos or my favorite moments from the year so far, and this was just kind of like the natural place for it. There really isn't much going on in this spread. I just used the same washi tape that I've been using throughout this entire setup to create like this border of sorts, and then went back in with the alphabet washi tape to write out mid-year wrap-up 2024, and that is pretty much it. Alrighty friends, it is time for the final flip through of my June bullet journal setup inspired by all things Masquerade, Phantom of the Opera, Gothic, flowers, ribbon. I really hope you enjoyed. This setup was a little bit chaotic to create behind the scenes, but nonetheless, I honestly really love how it turned out, and I also love that my journal is now permanently thick in the center. Let me know your thoughts on this theme, and let me know what theme you decided to choose for this month. As always, if you would like even more bullet journal inspiration, feel free to check out my Instagram and any of my previous Plan With Me's. And also tag me if you end up recreating them, because those are honestly a lot of fun, and it just warms my heart to see that so many of you are enjoying what I create and even get inspired to try out a black page bullet journal for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!